A major change is on the way in how we receive weather warnings in Ireland. Éireann has confirmed it will replace county-wide alerts with a new localised polygon-based warning system, meaning instead of entire counties being placed under alert, specific areas will be highlighted on maps. The move is aimed at giving clearer, more targeted guidance to communities at risk. But what will it mean for Clare, particularly for rural communities and the farming sector? Joining me to discuss this is Joe Killeen, Fianna Fáil Councillor for Corofin, who himself has previously called for a more coordinated response plan to extreme weather events. Joe, good morning to you. Thanks for being with us.
Morning, Alan. Morning, listeners. So,
you must be delighted to hear that this is going to be happening. As I say, you were looking for a more coordinated response plan to extreme events. Is this the kind of thing you had in mind?
It is really now. We just have to step up to the mark now. We have greater knowledge, greater ability to use the satellites and radar to properly predict how weather fronts and how the weather is going to develop. We do get a great service from Éireann, but they're going to step up to the mark now and give a more localised weather system. We've seen since we had Storm Chandra and Storm Owen a number of red alerts that would include many counties along the western seaboard, obviously, along parts of Leinster and then moving into Ulster. There are so many weather alerts coming forward that is causing huge disruption and huge unpredictability. So now we're moving to a more localised weather system. I think this system has been used in the USA for the past 20 years. It's not based on a county basis. It's based on just a local area where a weather system will develop. So for Clare example, you could have a completely different weather prediction for the western seaboard, Lahinch, as well as Kilkeen up to Ballyvaughan, to what you would have in the eastern side, Fecal to Scariff and down as far as Killaloo. So to just give more information, it's a polygon-based system that will use a satellite. It will forecast the rain. It will forecast storms, obviously, that are coming through, but it'll forecast the path of that as well. Rain systems, 24-hour precipitation, cold or warm fronts will be forecast, temperatures, cloud cover, drying conditions. So all this will just lead to more predictability and more information on the ground. So if we do get a weather alert, we do get very severe conditions, the same as we got in Storm Owen, there will be much more preparedness because we'll be able to predict the flight path of that particular front.
Okay, and it'll be more suitable for a county like Clare, which is sizable and diverse geographically, and that the current county-wide system has perhaps been too broad at times. Also with us is Martin McMahon, Secretary of the Clare ICMSA. And Martin, from a farming perspective, how significant is this move away from blanket county alerts to more, as Joe has been outlining, specific sub-county warnings, particularly, given, as we were just mentioning, Clare is a decent size, especially going from west to east?
Yeah, I think it's very important. I think it's it would be a huge improvement if you can really alert people when a particular storm or rain or anything like that is hitting the county in certain areas of that you can actually say, well, it'll be worse in West Clare or it'll be worse in East Clare. And I suppose from a farmer point of view, it's very important because we're always looking at the weather. We're either making silage, making hay, or going spreading fertiliser or slurry or whatever, and we need to know what the weather conditions is going to be like. So it is very important on a farmer point of view. And from everybody, from householders and that, especially even builders, people who are building houses, if there's a storm coming, they need to know to make sure that they're ready to close up and that barricade up their building in case of damage be done. So it would be a huge improvement if that can be done, and if it can be done well and the predictions are good from it, I think it would be a very good thing to happen. I suppose as well on the farming side of it, I suppose we need to know in advance always what it is like. If you're going to put in silage, you need to know, are you having 3 or 4 or 5 days, and in that particular area are you want to have that weather. And I suppose that's very important. In the same way with haymaking and fertiliser, putting out all those things, it's very important to know if there's a huge amount of rain coming or just a small amount.
So it'll be beneficial for all that. And I know, Joe, you've touched on Storm Éireann a number of times there, and in the aftermath of that, you called for a community crisis response plan. Would more localised warnings strengthen that kind of response strategy?
There will, because it'll give much more precision as to where these storm fronts will strike. And the idea now is that we would have central located community centres who would be equipped to deal with emergencies. So we would put solar panels on our community centres with batteries that would store power, equip them with generators that would be able to supply power in an ESB outage, as we saw recently in Storm Owen. Some places 1 full week without power restoration because of a variety of difficulties in getting the power systems back up. So the central located community centres then would be able to provide some services, phone charging, hot food and other emergency needs that would be needed in a local area. And this polygon-based system would give much more precision as to where this storm is going to strike. I think it will be linked into, there will be coordination between the local authorities, the national fire and emergency management systems will all be linked in together to identify where the greatest need will be in the event of a very, very severe storm, as we've had in the past number of years, to coordinate help and to coordinate help for those in those areas that are worst affected.
Martin, I'm just thinking of, and it's just in my mind because we were talking about farmers in the Burren on another story on yesterday's show, and older farmers. I just wondered if you foresee any challenges in communicating these more detailed warnings to older farmers, or perhaps those in more isolated areas, maybe areas where there isn't great coverage and they struggle to get weather updates on their phone.
I suppose that's very important that the messages got out there. But I think that, most people listen to radios, televisions and that, and usually a day or maybe a night before, you'll be watching television and you'll see that there is an alert coming, that there's a storm coming, or there's a very heavy rainfall. So most people will know and they'll be watching out for it. And especially, I think, I was just thinking of how important it is for the sheds. Usually the farmer closes up the doors. If he hears there's a storm coming, he closes up the shed, he secures all his doors. He has a lot of work to do before the storm to make sure that everything is safe. And I suppose as well, not to be out during the storm. Make sure that he has his fathering done and that he has his cattle looked after, because he's out nearly 20 every day doing his work, and he needs to batten down everything and have his work finished up before the serious storm, because as you know, during the storm it's not the time to be out. So I think it's a great thing, and especially if the message has got out there. So I think the message will be got out, because usually a day before people are listening to the radio, they're watching television, and they know that the weather alert is coming. So I think that they will know, and I think it would be very important. And I suppose one of the things in farming, and I suppose I can't do without mentioning this, we were told to farm by the calendar. I don't think farming by the calendar is the way to go, and I think that will have to change going forward. And probably with this weather alerts, it will tell you that you're going to have fine weather before and dry weather before the closing of the slurry period, for example. Maybe sometime in the end of December or whatever, you could put out slurry rather than wait until the middle of January when it could be pouring rain. And if you can know these things in advance, I think this would be a great help as well.
Joe, I'm just thinking of potential issues, and while more precise, on the face of it, more precise warnings, they do sound positive, but is there potential for confusion if neighbouring areas are under different alert levels, or maybe even a risk that the kind of like hyper local alerts might end up leading to complacency in areas just outside a warning zone? They look at the update and say, well, it's not going to affect us, but perhaps there might be potential for it to do so.
I think the change came about because the information was just too imprecise. A red alert would be introduced for County Clare. Schools would close, businesses would be closed down, and sections of Clare would be adversely affected unnecessarily. Last year, there was an alert for snow in County Clare. Parts of Clare did get a certain amount, did get a certain cover. Other parts of it wasn't snow, it was just it was rain. It fell as rain. So parts of the county were red alerted unnecessarily. This will give more precise information. It will give a window for preparedness, because it will be able to predict into the future so that people can get prepared. As Martin said, the old Irish phrase, Níhe Lawn, the Guichen Lawn, the Scullop, the day of the storm isn't the day to be getting organised. It'll give us more precise information. It'll give us an opportunity for preparedness. It will lead to greater safety and greater security for people in their homes.
Martin, is there anything you would like to see included alongside this new warning system to better protect rural communities?
Well, I suppose the one thing is will be very important that is a good system. In other words, that it's given out, if it does give a warning, that you get the right information. That will be very important, because during the past we have seen, we'll say, warnings of various different things, and sometimes they won't amount to a lot, and more times they might amount to more than what was predicted. I suppose the older people back, especially along the sea coast, were very well able to predict the weather, and they usually got it very right. But I think that if this is an improvement, I think it would be a great advantage, but it needs to be an improvement on the alert that's being given out, and it's going to be very important that it be correct. In other words, if there is a big warning given, that it does come and that they're on top of the game with it. And I think it would be a huge advantage to the like of ourselves farmers to know that a fine week is coming or there's rain coming, and you can work around that thing. And as Joe says, to be prepared before the storm is very important. I suppose one other thing that needs to come out of the last storm is that a lot of trees were knocked, and it took a long time to get electricity back. I think that they will want to make sure that in future, where there's trees near the line, that they're cut well ahead of that storm, so they're not going out when the storm has hit and trying to get back electricity when there's a whole pile of trees down, and that's what delayed an awful lot of the thing. And I think that would be something that should be done in the future. Yeah,
that is a fair point, Joe, isn't it?
It is, and we might look as well at the dredging of rivers now. It was something that was carried out all those years when machinery was very basic, and a huge amount of work was done by the person on the shovel. We just need to look at a system where water is allowed to move off, obviously, an island nation and an island county. We should be able to allow the water to move off as quickly as possible to prevent flooding of roads and the inconvenience of flooding of houses and that, like we saw along the River Slaney. We just need to look at that. And the weather forecasters didn't cause the flooding down in Wexford. It was caused by different factors. We just need to be proactive, look at the situation. We need to see how bad it can get, be prepared for it, and emergency comes, then we're prepared and we are able to cope with that situation.
You're both fairly effusive about this change, but ultimately, Joe, will a great element of the success of this replacement of county alerts with a local system also depend on just how well it's implemented locally?
It will, but I think just by being prepared and being ready and have a little bit of foresight, we have a huge amount of technology now. We can identify now through you open your laptop or they open the laptop in the planning section in Clare County Council. They can tell you where the highest water mark is for a flooding area. It can tell you how high that flood will go in severe weather situation. So we do have the information on it. We just need to coordinate it. We do need to coordinate the services that will help to remediate the situation, get them all singing off the one hymn sheet, get ourselves organised and be able to cope with these situations. We do have climate change. We do have more extreme weather coming in. We do need to learn from the past. The Slaney River was a good example of perhaps lack of preparedness, maybe a little bit of lack of foresight because the planning wasn't in place. It's been 10 years in the making. Some of those plans hadn't been put in place, hadn't been progressed. We need to look forward, see what the pinch points are, get them sorted out and get ourselves organised.
Okay, I'd be very interested to hear what the Morning Focus listeners make of this, the move from county-wide alerts to a new localised polygon-based warning system. Joe and Martin, very positive about it. Do you feel the same way, or have you any concerns or reservations? 0818 400 964 to call us. 086 1800 964 is the text and WhatsApp number for any messages. My thanks to Joe Killeen there, of course, the Fianna Fáil Councillor from Corofin and Secretary of Clare ICMSA, the farmer Martin McMahon.